there is applause, you will be asked to leave.
May I make a brief statement? May I repeat it? I'm sorry. May I? What I'm not okay with is the mandate.
Excuse me. The memo of understanding
Okay,
indicated
I
that there was not
apologize.
going to be a reply. The second question will be to Mr. Blevins. That is also a coalition question. With our unemployment rate tracking higher than the national average, what, in your opinion, are the key initiatives that should be supported to improve the job picture in the 16th district?
I think the way that we can improve the job situation, not only in the 16th district, but throughout the nation, is to first off stop and reduce the federal spending that is recklessly harming our fiscal health in our nation. Once we do that, we could then look to reduce the tax burden on all American taxpayers and businesses, which would free up money that can be invested via consumption or direct investment, and that is the best way to grow jobs in this district and, like I said, throughout the country. This is what we need to do. It's sort of instead of a bailout, it allows us to decide how best to utilize our income.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Congressman Bocheri.
Thank you. First, the job situation is much better than it was last year. It's not growing fast enough. I'm still angry about that, of course. But improvements are being made. We see that we've had 8 consecutive months of private sector job increases. 760,000 private sector jobs have been increased. We also see that we've had 11 months of consecutive manufacturing output increase, and that's important. We need to continue to invest in our local businesses. A bill that we'll be voting on this week is going to provide added access for the Small Business Lending Fund, which will help small businesses get access to capital. Also, the fact that we're going to see small businesses have 100% exclusion from the capital gains tax, which is very important. Another issue in that bill for our small businesses that are going to help companies like Tech4, help companies like Luke and ABS Materials, is that we're going to make sure that we increase our exports. Do you know, in the last decade, 7 of the last 10 industries weren't in existence. They were manufactured by small businesses through investments that they have made. But the long-term strategy, no less, is that we have got to make sure that we end these abusive trade practices that keep shipping our jobs overseas. They have to be fair for American workers. They have to be fair for American businesses. You take Wooster Brush here, who's being unfairly competed against by the Chinese, who are dumping their products into this community and around America at below cost. We've got to make sure that we build it, grow it, and assemble it here in America. America is stronger when we do that. There's fundamental differences between me and my opponent on this issue. He supports free trade agreements, doesn't want to close the tax loopholes that have sent our jobs overseas, and I think that's unacceptable for a long-term strategy. The Chinese just last week announced that they're asking all the American car manufacturers to turn over all their battery technology to the Chinese Communist government. Now, folks, we need to make sure that we're looking out for our interests. The Chinese and Indonesians and the Brazilians are not looking out for our interests. We have to look out for our interests, and it comes with a strong, robust trade policy for American workers and American businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Renacci.
Well, I got to tell you, over the last 2 years since Mr. Bocheri has been in office, we have been hemorrhaging jobs in the 16th district. We have gone from almost 6.5% to 12%, and we're talking about job creation. What you heard Mr. Bocheri speak a lot about is government programs. Let me tell you, 67% of the jobs created in this country and in this district are created by small businessmen. They're created by the small business person who understands that predictability and certainty allows them to invest and allows them to employ people. I'm a small business owner. I can tell you today, as many small business owners will tell you, they will not hire another person today because they are concerned about predictability and certainty. What are some of the things that have caused the lack of predictability and certainty in our 16th district and in our country? Well, let me just name a few. Obamacare. If Obamacare is going to raise costs to a small business owner by anywhere from 28 to 60%, most business owners are going to be scared to death to hire somebody. Let me give you another example, cap and trade. My opponent has supported cap and trade, and as a business owner, I wonder what my utility costs are going to be. The CBO says that it'll be almost $1,200 increase per family, and there's been some studies that say that the cost to a business owner will be as high as 30% in utility costs. That brings uncertainty and predictability to the table. Third is taxes. My opponent has already approved $1.4 trillion in new taxes. Now let's face it, if you're a small business owner and you're somebody who's going to be willing to put your resources out and employ people, you need certainty and predictability. I stand here today and tell you that we need to have policies that give the small business owner the opportunity to increase employment and grow, and we need to get government out of the way.
Thank you. The third question will begin with Congressman Bocheri. The question is also from the coalition. It is, the BioOhio Research Park is gaining momentum with The Ohio State University, City of Wooster, and private investors. What do you suggest to help grow this public-private project into a regional tool for economic growth and job development?
Let me just say that the BioOhio program has been one of the outstanding and exemplary programs that we have created with this public-private partnership with both business and government. 1,250 small businesses around the state. We see that we're investing in research and development. 55,000 jobs are attached to this. This is a program that has helped local companies like Quasar and some of the research that we're doing at ORADC. So I support this fully, and the public-private partnership that's in place with the venture capital funds that's been set up so that we have $500 million to help research and development. We have $500 million for research and facilities, and we also have $100 million to start up these small businesses. This is a bright spot for the community, and certainly one that we ought to champion with the research that we're doing at ARDC. I must say that I've become perplexed at some of the dialect and the discussion that we have in our politics today. You know, you hear this often, get government out of the way. Are these code words for putting the big insurance companies and the big oil companies back in charge? Are these code words for suggesting that we're going to allow insurance companies to dump people because they got sick, even though they were paying their premiums? Are these code words, get government out of the way, putting the big oil companies in charge instead of moving away from our dependence on foreign oil? Are these code words to suggesting that we ought to put the big banks on Wall Street back in charge who were betting against America, betting against you for failing to pay your mortgage? You know, this is something that we have a fundamental difference of agreement on. I think there needs to be referees on the field making sure that folks are looking out for our best interests. My political philosophy is this. The government should set the out-of-bounds markers, set the goalposts, let the free market operate in between, but be a good referee. When someone goes out of bounds, throw the flag. And we can have a debate all day about whether those markers are here or much further out, but we need a referee on the field looking out for consumers, looking out for workers and small businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Renacci.
Well, I too say that the program is a great program here in the county. And I am one that champions private and public partnerships. When I was mayor of Wadsworth, I can tell you that in the intersection of Route 261 and 76, that was a combination of private and public partnership that was working together. And today, there's over 300 to 400 jobs created there. So I do agree that we need to be able to continue, in any case, to be able to work together with private investors in the public sector and be able to create jobs. I think that's done in this setting, and I think it's a great opportunity here in Wayne County. So I am for that. I believe in it. And again, we need to get as much private investment working with the government as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renacci. Mr. Blevins.
I think we need to get back to the Constitution. It protects research and development as intellectual property, and that is what our federal government is authorized to do, to protect those rights. It's not authorized to subsidize them. BioOhio does a great many things, and as such, I believe that people will choose to invest their money in it if they're allowed to keep more of their own monies through tax cuts. I think we need to get the public part out of this public-private entity, where whenever you see public monies, there's always inefficiencies and possibilities of political cronyism. So I would like to see it become more of a private funded entity and continue the great work that it does.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Our next question will be from the audience, and Mr. Renacci will be the first to respond to it. What single policy change is most important to restore our economy?
I believe that the single policy change that needs to be changed at the federal government level, is that what the question is?
I believe so.
All right.
You have everything I have.
Okay, well, let's face it, the number one concern that most Americans have is our out-of-control spending. We need to put policies in place that where we can control the spending that's occurring today. You know, Congressman Pence has an idea which I believe very strongly in, and that is to cap discretionary spending at 20%. That is the spending limit over the last 200 years. We are running today around 27%. In business, you need to be able to control your spending if you're going to grow. In business, you can't spend more than you're spending, more than you bring in. Today, we have a government that believes we could spend ourselves into prosperity, and I can tell you that just isn't going to happen. As a business owner, as a family, we all sit around the table and we have to spend within our means. And I think what we need to do is get the spending to a level where we all can understand that the spending limits are there, discretionary spending has to be capped, and we have to be able to live within a 20% of the GDP. That's a great starting point for us to tackle discretionary spending. And remember, that doesn't affect Social Security, that doesn't affect the military, that doesn't affect veterans' benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renacci. Mr. Blevins.
I think that the most important policy that we need to restore is fiscal responsibility in Washington. We need to either get a balanced budget amendment passed, and I know there's a lot of difficulty with that, so maybe impose a legislative cap on all spending, not just discretionary spending, but all spending. And we also need to look at cutting programs that are not authorized by the Constitution and either return them back to the states or, better yet, privatize them.
Thank you. Congressman Bocheri.
The single most important policy change that we have got to enact is enacting fair trade policies that work for American workers and American small businesses. You know, I just learned something last week that a state-owned Chinese steel company is coming in and trying to buy a mill in Mississippi. And the American Chamber of Commerce in China issued a statement, said that this was the right thing to do. Now, there's a whole lot of national security concerns that come up with just something of that caliber. I signed a letter with 50 other legislators saying no, that we ought to look at this very closely. It's still a communist country, and we ought to be looking out for American businesses so that we grow it here, build it here, and assemble it here. America is always stronger. America is always stronger. Making sure that we have an energy policy that works for us so that we have a choice. When you roll into a fuel station one day and have a choice between biofuels, ethanol that was produced here in Wayne County and researched at ORADC, you plug in your electric hybrid, use traditional gasoline, or drive by the fuel station altogether because you have a fuel cell that allows you to get 100 miles to the gallon that was researched right here in our congressional district. That's the type of energy policy that makes sense. Unfortunately, it's being dogged by a bipartisan free market approach that would help curb emissions. You see, because Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Sarah Palin, and John McCain all campaigned on a free market approach that would put the free market in charge of helping curb emissions and provide innovation and creativity rather than the United States EPA one-size-fits-all. That system is called cap and trade. Check the facts out on our website. I'll tell you this, my opponents talk about spending. I don't shy away from the fact that I brought $1.3 million back here to the Ohio State Ag Research Center so that they can study infectious diseases and diseases as they relate to plant and animal. I'm not shying away from the fact that I was able to help Smith Dairy get $3.5 million so that they could expand and grow and secure a $20 million contract that's going to keep 369 jobs here in Wayne County. That's right. That's the right investment for America. It's the right investment for Wayne County, too.
Thank you. The fifth question will go first to Mr. Blevins, also from the audience.